It's the end of 2017 and I have had a great year at school. I got a girlfriend, I went on 2 school excursions, and I had 2 really good mates named Byron and Seth. I would hang out with both of them every single day at school, and we were like one of the popular groups in year 4, so we're 10 years old. This was the peak of existence for a 10-year-old. I'd hang out with different people every day, we'd start gangs at school. We were the kids that you wanted to hang out with. But I remember Seth had intended to move schools the next year and actually repeat grade 4. So that would only leave me with one friend, that being Byron. So we go into the 6 weeks of holidays and I hang out with Byron a couple of times. I don't really see Seth because he didn't have like a phone or an iPod or anything, so I couldn't communicate with him. So we get back to school in 2018 and obviously Byron and I are no longer in the same class together anymore. So I'm in one class, he's in another, and he's meeting a bunch of the other guys who were in our year group who he'd never met before, and he's sort of becoming friends with those guys. So at first that's all good. We're actually playing like a big game of, I think it was like Bull Rush or Red Rover Crossover, something like that at lunch. And so every break we would just play this big game of Bull Rush, him and I, with this big group of guys. And I remember I had some people who were sort of all right in my class this particular year, but I didn't really want to hang out with them. So, you know, Byron and I, as I said, are hanging out for the first couple of weeks, but I reckon we get about 3 weeks to 4 weeks into the first term, and I noticed that he's not hanging out with me as much anymore. I'm having to hang around with people who I didn't really want to hang around with. We're not playing basketball as much as we used to, and I asked him, how come you haven't been hanging out with me as much? And he lied straight to my face. He told me that his mum didn't want him hanging out with me anymore because she didn't like me or something like that. But I'd never given this woman any reason not to like me. I was actually quite a good kid at this point in time. You know, I wasn't getting in trouble at school, but he was like the complete opposite of that. Like, he used to flip desks and chuck computers and stuff. And I'm not disrespecting him here by any means. This is just like how it was. So for him to have said that to me, I worked out eventually that he was obviously lying. You know, like he just didn't want to hang out with me anymore for whatever reason. All right, so at this point, I work out that I've got to start making new friends and, you know, finding people who I actually want to hang out with. Otherwise, this year is going to be super tough. Keeping in mind, I'm only 10 years old at the time. So I remember in my class, there was this kid who I'd been friends with when I was 9, so in year 3. So it's now 2 years later, in year 5. And I start talking to him, we're getting along well, and we actually start hanging out again. And then I remember a few weeks after that, we'd been hanging out, we were pretty much as close as ever. You know how it is when you're kids, you get close really quick. This kid in my class who was actually new started talking to me one day, and for whatever reason, I didn't like this kid. I didn't feel like I wanted to be friends with this kid, but I was a nice enough guy to speak to him, you know, respectfully. And so he asked for my pencils on this particular day, and I'll never forget this, bro. He asked for my pencils, and I said, sure. And in my mind, I'm just thinking, fuck this cunt, I don't want to give him my pencils. They're my good coloured pencils, but like, I gave them to him anyhow, because we were doing like a free time or whatever, and we were like drawing and stuff in class. But bro, I'll just say, before I get into anything else, I'm glad I gave this motherfucker my pencils that day. By the way, this kid's name was Jake, keep that in mind, all right? So the year gets on and we make another friend. So there's 3 of us hanging out. There's Hamish, Jake, and this other friend. And you know, we'd enjoy ourselves at school and stuff together. I made up this thing called doggy ditch, where we'd all be hanging out, and then you'd say doggy ditch Hamish or something, and then we'd all run away from Hamish, or doggy ditch Jake, and we'd just run away from whoever it was that were doggy ditching. It was fucking stupid, man, but it was fun. It was funny as fuck. But I remember later on in the year, we all started getting a bit more aggressive, I guess you could say hormonal, to the point where we were just taking the piss out of each other all the fucking time. And I remember Jake, right? So the guy who asked for my pencils, he hadn't been exposed to this before. He'd never had friends that sort of criticised him or called him out or told him his virtues, things he could improve on, or just like generally took the piss out of him. So when we started doing that to him, he didn't like it. So eventually it got to the point where Jake had just had enough and he stopped hanging out with us all together. He went home to his mum one day and just bawled his eyes out, like he was crying about the things we had said to him. He said he was getting bullied at school by people who were supposedly his friends, which was us. We didn't necessarily see it that way, but looking back, it was fairly weak, some of the stuff we would say to him specifically, until one day in class, there's this big discussion with the teacher. I don't even remember what it was about, but every cunt in this class who has ever done anything wrong is in trouble. So something must have happened at the break before, because we spent the last 2 hours of that day discussing what had happened, right? I don't even remember. But there was this incident with this girl, and then she starts making up all of these lies. So this girl who I'd been friends with that year, like earlier that year and the year before, she tells my mate that I said something that I didn't. And I'm not even going to say it on here because it's actually absolutely fucking disgusting, the rumours she made up. Anyhow, she goes in the back room, tells my mate that, tells the teacher that. And so my mate, Hamish, and the other mate cut me off, which obviously means I now have no friends, because Jake, the one who was good, we bullied out of the group, so he wasn't there anymore. So at this point, I feel like shit. I'm 11 years old and I'm just thinking, fuck, what am I gonna do? I have no friends, my whole world's ending. You know how you think as like a young kid like that. So the bell rings to go to break. You know, Hamish and this other kid, they're happy, they're jotting along, they go off to break. I grab my bag, which has a safe in it, which has my phone in it, and I go into the bathrooms that are inside, which are not allowed in break. So no one else would be in there, I knew. And I get out my phone out of the safe, put in the code, and I start calling my dad. As I'm calling him, I just burst into fucking tears. Like disgust, like just couldn't speak type of tears. You know when you're just crying so much you can't even talk? It was like that. You know, I burst into tears and then my dad answers the phone. You know, what's wrong, mate? That sort of thing. And I'm just bawling my eyes out, telling him that I've got no friends. I sort of tell him what's happened. I can't remember exactly what I told him, but it was something along those lines. So anyhow, I stay in those bathrooms until he gets to school. I'm waiting for like 20 minutes in the bathroom. And he finally calls me and tells me he's at the front office. So I put on my bag and I run up to the front office through the corridors, hoping that no one sees me, fucking bawling my eyes out. Just this 11-year-old kid legging it up the hall whilst crying. Sure enough, no one does. I think maybe one teacher saw me and asked if I was all right. I said, yeah. Get to the front office, and by this point, the break has ended, okay? So it must have been like half an hour, 40 minutes. And my teacher is coming out, conveniently enough, just as my dad's coming in, all right? So I'm sitting on the steps out the front of the office, my dad's coming in, and my teacher, who was a hard but fair man, looking back, he's coming out. So he sees me crying, he sees my dad pick me up, like, oh, what's wrong? He starts talking to my dad and I'm telling him, and they start talking to each other. And this teacher, let's call him Mr. P, I won't say his full name, he starts telling my dad sort of what's happened and why I'm feeling this way. And I'm just bawling, like sitting there fucking bawling whilst they're talking to each other. So to make a long story short, we get past that, I go home, and then my brother gets home, and obviously dad or mum had told my older brother, my eldest brother, what had happened. So at this point, he would have been about 15 years old. So he comes home and he's talking to me. He's very sympathetic for me at the time. And I tell him, like, I've got no friends, I don't want to go to school, but you know, mum and dad are going to make me. You know, that's fair enough. And I'm just going to have to go to school with no friends, and I hate it. I don't want to go. And I see him pull up Instagram, and it looks like he's messaging someone, and I say, who are you messaging? Because I felt he was going to either message one of those boys or he was going to message my old mate to come and hang out with me. So sure enough, get to the next day, not keen for school at all, thinking like, fuck, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have no one to hang out with. I'm going to be the biggest loser and I'm going to die alone. This is my thought process. I'll get to school the next day, and this mate, Jake Crocker is his name. You'll see him soon here on YouTube, actually. So Jake Crocker as I call him, he's warming to me at the start of the day, like straight away talking to me after having not spoken to me for, like, as I said, 1-2 months. I didn't say anything, but I knew the reason he was talking to me was because my brother had messaged him and told him what's going on. And man, this guy was just the most fucking kind-hearted kid you would ever meet. He wouldn't do any wrong by anyone. He wouldn't say things to hurt anyone's feelings. If you did something wrong, he would tell on you. I remember the first time we did something together that was naughty, he snitched on me. Like, It was in such an innocent way, like he didn't know that was wrong to snitch on your mates. I'm gonna have to do another video on that entirely, but we start hanging out every single day. We start riding scooters together, going downtown, getting clips on our scooters. You know, he'd come to my house on the weekend, I'd go to his. There was no video games, there was no Xbox or any of that bullshit. We loved going outside, riding bikes, riding scooters, going downtown, doing shit like outside together. So we grew pretty close, and to this day, he's still my best mate. I just did a vlog with him in Melbourne, you will have seen. And that's a crazy story, bro. I was just thinking about it this morning. I was like, I have to tell this to you guys, because I bullied the fuck out of this kid. Like, I wouldn't have said that at the time. I wouldn't have said it was bullying. I would have just said he was a soft cunt, he was a pussy. You know, obviously it was bullying. And who am I to call anyone a pussy? I literally cried when I didn't have any friends because I lost two mates. So I bullied this kid, we all did, and he was a kind enough guy, a genuine enough guy to become friends with me. And sure enough, we're friends to this day. It's coming up 7 years. And the most insane part about all of this is that he turns out to be my third cousin. Like, no shit. So my nan's uncle is his pop. Like, it's that close. It's not hard to work it out. He's my third cousin, which is fucking wild to me, bro. So first I meet this kid, become friends with him, bully the fuck out of him to the point where he no longer wants to hang out with us, lose my mates, and then become friends with this kid, and then end up literally meeting both of our idol at 17 years old, David Goggins. I can't make this shit up. I swear some of the stories that I tell, bro, they sound like so fucking crazy that it's just like, this cunt's lying. But I promise you this happened. I'm sure Crocker will back me in the comments. But obviously there needs to be a lesson here, so I'm getting to that. The lesson that I would like to teach you today for this particular scenario, this point in time, is that sometimes God will close an old door for a new one to open. So in this instance, God removed these friends out of my life. He took them out of my life so a new person could come in. And you know, I can really relate this to something that has happened more recently, which is the court case that I've been through, which is now over. But sometimes God will do things not only to test you, but to make you reflect. So this court case, I'm just, in the moment I'm thinking, fuck, I shouldn't have done that, I fucked up, I've completely ruined my life, I'm probably gonna go to jail. This is what my thought process was at the time. But God did that to me, you know, put me through that so that I could get on this journey of self-growth, you know, personal development, and actually do something to change my life. He put me in an uncomfortable circumstance where I was forced to grow. So although sometimes things seem so unfortunate, they just seem like they're not going your way, and it's like life is so unfair, God is doing that not only to test you, but to put you on the right path towards success. When I made the decision to break up with my first ever girlfriend, which is the girl who I lost my V card to, I did not want to. I kept wanting to go back because I'd done it time and time again. I couldn't imagine losing this girl. I had an emotional attachment to her. But in doing that, in leaving her and not going back to her, I started growing. I started developing as a person. I really started to improve my life. Not directly from that point, but about 6 months after is when it started for me. And I know every single one of you watching this right now, without a doubt, has just recently had something happen that you're just dreading. You're thinking like, fuck, this is the worst. Like, what am I gonna do if this doesn't work out? But I promise you that thing that has just happened is going to be a part of the story that you one day tell. The harder it is for you, the bigger the dragon, you know, the better the story, and you know, to the victor go the spoils, as they say. So although your life may be so fucked, it's in shambles right now, you're completely broke, you're homeless, maybe you're living in your car. Imagine what's gonna happen when you completely flick the switch, you turn your life around and actually do something with yourself. Bro, imagine you're sitting in the top of a fucking penthouse that you've got paid off with 5 children, a beautiful wife, 32 fucking sports cars, everything you could ever want. And you're able to say, kids, one day your dad was sleeping in a fucking car with no money and nothing to his name, completely depressed, and I literally thought it was the end. And now we're here. This is the way I think of things, because I hear a lot of people say, oh no, but I want the money now. I want the subscribers now. I want the followers now. How do I get rich quick? How do I grow my channel quick? You don't. That's the short answer, you don't. But in doing this stuff without any fucking results, you might do YouTube for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, without any fucking results. No money, no ad revenue, no fucking subscribers. And then one day it'll just happen like that. But in going through those struggles, you're going to learn so much. I've been going to the gym for 4 years now, like literally 4 years. And I have a physique that would take a typical person about a year and a half to develop. Now, the reason that I tell you this is because in doing this, I've had to undergo far more struggle than the person who achieved the same result but in less time. I've learnt more, I've become more mentally tough, and I've learned how to persevere through my hardest times. That's the type of person who I would want to listen to, who I would want to take advice from. Not the person who's been training for a year and a half and got a year and a half worth of results. The person who's been training for 4 years, kept fucking persisting, but only got a year and a half worth of results. He's more resilient, he's more determined, more mentally tough. Every aspect about him, I aspire to have. You can't rush greatness, and you can't be in any sort of endeavor for the wrong reasons. So if you're just trying to start a business purely to make money, not out of the passion for the business, you don't actually enjoy what you're doing, you're probably not going to make money. It was like me when I started my first ever business. So before Hectic Threads, before the clothing brand, I started a dropshipping store called The Stash Plug. On this store, I didn't get any sales because I just didn't have my heart in it. I didn't feel invested. I didn't feel like doing it ever. I was just doing it to make money because I didn't want to have to work, because I was a lazy piece of shit with a 12-hour screen time every day. And you've just got to remember, the bigger you aim to build, the longer it is going to take. There's always anomalies. You're always going to see people that just seem to have that overnight success. But I'll tell you one thing, it's because they fucking deserve it. God will not gift you with the spoils, with the riches, with whatever you dream of until you actually deserve it. So, for example, if you're doing YouTube, but you're half-assing it, Matthew McConaughey always says, don't half-ass it. You're going to do something, do it proper. Ass it, right? So, if you're doing YouTube, but you could be posting every day, but you're posting maybe once a week, and the videos aren't that good, but they're okay. You're getting a couple hundred views. You're comfortable with that. You don't deserve the 10,000 subscribers that you want. You don't deserve the 100K views because you haven't earned it. You haven't worked for it. I could say I want 1 million subscribers by the end of this week, but the chances of that happening are super low because I have not put in 1 million subscribers worth of work. It's about the repetition. My videos may be good, they may help some of you out, but I haven't provided literally 1 million subscribers worth of value I haven't provided enough value to the point where 1 million people love the message. They want to watch me, they want to listen to me, they just want to continuously listen to what I have to say and learn from me. And I'm not saying that's not something that's going to happen. It's going to happen within the next year, but it's the constant repetition of actions that are going to get me there. And I know I've just gone on a bit of a fucking tangent here at the end, but circle it back to what I was saying. When God wants you to grow, He will remove things that you enjoy from your life. He will take you out of comfort, because one thing I will leave you guys with is there is no growth in a comfort zone. You do not grow in a comfort zone. You grow when you're uncomfortable, you're stressed, you're under pressure. I fucking love pressure. Most people hate it. All right, so that's just my yap for today. That's been a long one. If you do want to start improving your life and actually make a fucking change for the better, stop talking about it and do it. Click the top link in the description. That's going to take you to my online self-improvement school community where there's calls with me every single week. And I'm already helping over 30 young ladies and gentlemen improve themselves for the better every single day. So if that sounds like something that may be of interest, click the top link in the description. Stay grinding, ladies and gentlemen.